Imagine going to the doctor for years with genuinely distressing symptoms, only to be slapped with a label that doesn't even accurately describe what's happening in your body. Well, that is a deeply frustrating reality for an estimated 170 million women worldwide during their reproductive years alone. Now think about this. What if the very name of that condition is actually medically wrong? Like, it literally points to a symptom that most patients don't even have. It's led to massive confusion, deep-seated stigma, and a truly staggering 70% of affected individuals remaining completely undiagnosed. It's a massive global problem, but the good news, medical science is finally setting the record straight. Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be breaking down this monumental new study for you today because it is quite literally rewriting women's health history. We're going to look at a major sweeping health policy consensus that is officially changing the name of polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS as we've all known it, to polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, or PMOS. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a solid plan to unpack this historic rebrand. First, we'll cover the core problem with PCOS, then explore the massive global consensus driving the change, introduce the new PMOS framework, break down exactly what it means, and finally look at the road ahead. Let's jump in.
The problem with PCOS, a classic medical misnomer.
To really understand why the global medical community is completely overhauling a diagnosis we've used for decades, we have to contrast the myth with the reality. The old name directly implies that a patient has pathological ovarian cysts and that the whole thing is just strictly a reproductive issue. But actually, scratch that because the science says something entirely different. The data confirms this is a complex endocrine, metabolic, and multi-system disorder. The wildest part, pathological ovarian cysts aren't even increased in people with this condition. The name is literally a misnomer, and for years it has caused so much unnecessary distress. And the research brilliantly illustrates the specific, evidence-based harms driving the case for a new name. This old terminology didn't just cause a little clinical confusion, it reinforced deep sociocultural stigma. Because the old name focused so heavily on reproduction, it caused immense anxiety, especially in cultures where fertility is highly prioritized. A lot of individuals reported serious, real-world distress associated just with the name itself. Plus, this misnomer tangled up research data, delayed critical diagnoses, and totally hindered effective communication between patients and their doctors. We desperately needed an accurate update.
Section 2, a massive global consensus. This was a true worldwide effort.
14,360. That number is absolutely crucial. It represents something you almost never see in modern medicine, a massive, truly unified agreement. Because think about it, how do you actually change a name that's been etched into medical textbooks for generations? Well, it takes an unprecedented, rigorous worldwide effort. We're talking about global survey responses from 10,111 patients and 3,949 health professionals, all demanding a better name. It's incredibly rare to see doctors and patients align this perfectly on a single issue. It really is a historic moment. And breaking down the disciplines involved here, this definitely wasn't just a handful of doctors sitting in a closed boardroom making some unilateral decision. Not at all. This was a mandate backed by 56 distinct organizations spanning incredibly diverse medical fields. From obstetrics and gynecology with over 1,100 survey responses, right through to endocrinology, primary care, and even nutrition and exercise professionals. A totally unified front. Everyone recognized that to treat the whole patient, the terminology simply had to reflect the entire body's experience. Let's move to and see how this builds across the actual consensus process. The framework was intense. It followed a rigorous 6-stage process aligned with the James Lind Alliance. It started all the way at securing funding and governance, moved through multiple Delphi surveys, and culminated in systematic nominal group workshops. They even brought in marketing and communication experts. Why? Because they had to figure out how to effectively transition this branding without losing all those decades of patient advocacy and hard-earned public awareness. It was just a brilliantly coordinated effort. Section 3, Introducing PMOS, the moment we've been waiting for. All of that rigorous surveying, the heated debates, and the scientific alignment built up massive anticipation. And here we have it, the official new name, polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. The global consensus explicitly chose this evolutionary approach. By shifting from PCOS to PMOS, they're making sure we have a smooth transition from the old acronym while drastically improving scientific accuracy. They finally dropped that highly misleading word cis entirely. Instead, they captured the true triad of the condition, the hormonal imbalances, the metabolic challenges, and the specific ovarian dysfunction, the whole shebang.
Section 4, what does PMOS mean? Let's break this down.
So the crucial point is that we really need to de-jargonize this mouthful of a scientific name. Let's look at the first chunk, polyendocrine. This finally acknowledges that the condition involves multiple interacting hormone abnormalities. We're talking about elevated androgens and luteinizing hormone driving all those systemic symptoms. For the longest time, the medical focus was solely on the ovaries. But polyendocrine accounts for the true root cause of distressing daily symptoms like hirsutism, severe acne, and alopecia. It completely shatters the myth of isolated ovarian pathology and forces the focus onto the broader hormonal network. Next up is metabolic. And honestly, this addition is incredibly validating for millions of patients out there. It recognizes the intrinsic insulin resistance that affects up to 85% of individuals with this condition. By putting metabolic right there in the name, the medical community is formally validating the extreme weight management challenges that patients face every single day. Plus, it highlights the serious systemic risks that require focused clinical care. We're talking elevated risks for type 2 diabetes, metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, and cardiovascular disease. It is so much more than just a reproductive issue. Finally, we have ovarian. This directly replaces that highly misleading polycystic misnomer. Ovarian accurately captures the real reproductive issues at play: ovulatory dysfunction, arrested follicular development, and elevated anti-Müllerian hormone. But notice what is conspicuously missing here. There are no pathological cysts. None. Zero. Instead, the name now reflects actual follicular science. This gives both doctors and patients a much clearer, far more accurate picture of the reproductive challenges without relying on an imaginary symptom.
Section 5, the road ahead. How does this actually get rolled out?
So what does this monumental shift actually mean for patients going forward? And exactly how is the medical world going to roll this out without causing total chaos? Now, what's really interesting about the strategy here is how meticulously they've mapped out this 8-stage global implementation. They aren't just updating a single Wikipedia page. They are systematically integrating this new terminology into electronic health records worldwide. They're rewriting medical textbooks, designing multilingual patient resources, and formally working with international bodies like the World Health Organization to update the official International Classification of Diseases coding.
Tracing the timeline, you can really see the sheer scale of this transition. It's definitely not an overnight flip of a switch. Following the initial funding and the massive Delphi surveys between 2024 and 2026, we are entering a carefully managed 3-year transition period from 2026 to 2028. This deliberate, steady pacing ensures a highly coordinated global rollout, allowing healthcare providers time to adapt without disrupting patient care. By 2028, PMOS is scheduled for full integration into the international guideline, meaning it will officially become the medical standard across 195 countries.
And that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Will a more accurate name finally bring 170 million women the precise, targeted care they actually deserve? By shedding the deep stigma and the sheer medical inaccuracy of the past, this massive shift to PMOS promises a bold future. We're looking at clearer diagnoses, better focused scientific research, and comprehensive medical care that truly addresses the whole patient. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this critical, consensus-driven evolution in medical science. Keep asking those big questions, keep looking closely at the data, and I'll see you on the next explainer.